This is the one thing that makes the PS5 Pro worth it. How's it going, guys? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation, and Sony finally did it. I'm not like trying to like overhype it or anything, but as someone who makes 3 videos a week about PlayStation, it is so nice to say that Sony has finally revealed the PS5 Pro, because for the past year, every single detail about this console has leaked. Like literally everything. And Sony's just like, no, we're not working on a console. What are you talking about? And then they even teased it last week when they put out that 30th anniversary image, and it had the PS5 Pro in the image. So yes, Mark Cerny just did his technical preview or whatever they called it, where he deep dived into what the PS5 Pro is. And the key feature, the thing that makes this more of a next gen console than I think a lot of people who don't play on PC realize, is the upscaling tech that Sony has developed. But yeah, this is the key feature, because it's basically taking the thing that has made mid-grade PCs totally competitive for much longer than they would have been in the past, and it's just applying it to the PlayStation 5 with this new Pro console. And this is really the first step to the actual future of how game development is going to go on consoles, to really achieve this benchmark that they introduced with the beginning of this generation, which is 60 FPS. But the other side of the coin of this key feature, the upscaling tech that's going to be included in the PlayStation 5 Pro and every PlayStation console going forward from this point on, is the fact that you no longer have the big massive caveat when it comes to 60 FPS of massively degraded visuals, because upscaling is going to solve that problem. I'm not going to get super technical on this. I know I've talked about it in other videos, but I am also a PC gamer. I split my time like 70% on PS5 and 30% on PC. Most of the multiplayer stuff I play on PC because that's where all my friends are with Discord and everything like that. But the best feature I have on my PC is DLSS. My PC has a 4090 graphics card, a mobile version because it's a laptop. I've got a 13th gen i9 processor, so this thing is an absolute beast. And because games come out so unoptimized these days, and they're actually pushing things with next gen games like Space Marine 2 lately, it's hard to run games native at my 1440p monitor's resolution and get a hard lock 60 FPS. But when you start using something like DLSS, it's awesome, because in the past, DLSS, you could definitely see the downsides of upscaling, right? You're running the game at like 1080p or 1440p, upscaling it to 4K, or 1080p or 720p, upscaling it to 1440p. You would see rough edges, the grass textures would look a little weird, hair was always a big problem for these upscalers. But DLSS, thanks I'm sure in part to machine learning and AI, which is something that you're going to hear about ad nauseum going into the future, because AI is the next big thing in everything, it has really just solved all of these problems to the point where DLSS has gotten so good on PC that it's actually better looking to run a game at balanced or quality settings with DLSS on than it is to run the game native with anti-aliasing. Like, the AI upscaling has gotten so good that the edge detection, the hair detection, the grass detection is just plain and simple better than using traditional anti-aliasing running the game native. And because you're upscaling from a lower resolution, you get the added benefit of being able to run games not only at 60 and because you're getting the benefit of these games running internally at a much lower resolution than what you're seeing, you get the added benefit of running these games not only at 60 FPS, but all the way up to like 120 FPS if you introduce frame generation and stuff like that. So it has been critically important for a very long time for companies like Sony and Microsoft to develop their very own version of this that's just boutique and totally tuned to work with their hardware. When you have something that's proprietary to a specific graphics card range like DLSS is with RTX cards, or, you know, this new upscaling technology from Sony is to Sony consoles, you can fine tune it to just support one GPU at a time, which is going to give you even better results than most PCs if this works as well as Sony is making it out to be. So that is 100% the killer feature of this hardware, that even if you just bought a PlayStation 5 and you're like, games look pretty good on this thing, they're running decent, I can live with 30 FPS, I would say this thing is worth it for every PlayStation 5 owner to upgrade to, mainly because the graphical and frame rate leap you're going to see on this thing thanks to the upscalers is going to be awesome. So let's talk about the hardware itself. I know a lot of YouTubers have touched on this, myself included, because we had full renders of it, but it looks like a PlayStation 5 Slim with an extra line in it. It might be a little bit bigger than the PlayStation 5 Slim, but that's fine with me. The PlayStation 4 Pro was a little bit bigger than the PS4 Slim, and it fit totally fine in my entertainment center. The way I have my console set up upstairs is I'm doing the whole no cable thing. I have my TV floating on the wall, And so I use a sound bar, all the cords are tucked behind the TV, and then there's a little shelf behind the TV that I keep the PlayStation 5 on, so I don't even see it anyway, so I personally couldn't care less what it looks like if I'm being honest. But yeah, I think the PS5 Slim design, it translates better to real life than it does images. Like when you see an image of a PS5 Slim or now the PS5 Pro, it honestly looks a little bit like a toy compared to the original PS5, and that's a fair criticism. But when you see it in real life, it looks a lot more premium because of the reflective sort of texture that they have on the plates on the console. Like when it's sitting on my desk over there, my PS5 Slim, it looks really good compared to my laptop sitting on the desk because it's small, it's light, it's the actual size a console should be. It looks good standing up, and because the PS5 Pro looks exactly like the PS5 Slim with an extra line in it, I'm just assuming that things will be exactly the same. Another big benefit of the PS5 this generation is that it's really good at heat management, so I'm expecting that to carry over just perfectly from the PS5 to the PS5 Pro. The PS5 fan never turns on. The only time I ever hear it spin up literally at all is when I'm transferring games from a disc to the actual console, and I think the only reason I'm hearing anything spin up is because the disk drive is spinning so fast, so it can read the data from the disk and transfer it to the SSD. Sometimes in Gran Turismo 7, when I'm in a really heavy rain or like fog effect track, you'll hear the fan spin up a little bit, but the fan that they're using in the console is one of those really cool silent fans. So compared to the PS4, which sounded like an aircraft carrier by like mid-gen, this is a huge upgrade. So I'm glad that this thing is going to remain pretty slim profile and remain silent. That's a cool little added quality of life feature that I feel like doesn't get enough credit. And it's also carrying forward everything from the PS5 that's already great, like the DualSense. You get all the haptic feedback, you get the adaptive triggers. That's awesome. The one thing that remains to be seen that we're just going to have to wait for gameplay on is the CPU performance, because that's always going to be the limiting factor on a console. If you haven't noticed this, a lot of games this generation have been super CPU heavy. The game that I always bring up because I'm playing it a lot right now is Space Marine 2. When you're fighting off the Tyranids, there's like thousands of them on screen at certain times, and that's what really drops the frame rate because it has to render in all of those different animations and characters and everything like that for you to kill. And because the graphics are so good in that game, it just really bogs down the CPU. And from what we've heard from the leaks and everything like that, the CPU in the PlayStation 5 Pro is getting a marginal bump over the CPU in the PS5. It's actually most likely the same CPU, just running at a higher spec to match the GPU that's included in the APU on the PS5 Pro better. So I'm not sure if games like that are still going to have a little bit of frame stuttering and everything like that. But because of the resolution upscaling, I think they'll be able to kind of get back some of the frames that are lost by CPU limited games. The games I'm excited to go back and try on this are things like Jedi Survivor and Dead Space Remake, because both of those games use the Unreal Engine and have major problems when you're traversing rooms. Like when you open doors in Dead Space, there's always a frame drop to like 50 FPS for a few seconds, and it's pretty smoothed out, but you still see it. The same thing happens in Jedi Survivor when you're in one of those big open areas, like I think Kobo is what it's called. When you're moving between tiles of the map, there's always a little bit of a stutter. And in Space Marine 2, when you move between tiles of a map, there's always a little bit of a stutter, even if you're playing on the quality mode. I'm really curious if that marginal CPU bump is going to be enough to eliminate stuff like that, or improve it enough to where you don't really see it, because in Dead Space, if you're dropping to like 58 FPS instead of 50 FPS, you will never see that difference, or you'll just see it for a brief little second. The same thing goes for Jedi Survivor, and I was wrong. They are being crazy. They're bucking their trend that they started with the PS5 and PS5 Slim. They're selling this thing digital only with an optional disk drive attachment that you can add on later. This has been on sale since the launch of the PS5 Slim. It's $84, so it'll effectively raise the price by almost $100. I think if you pay tax, it would bring it to around $100 anyway. It is bizarre that they're doing this. I don't understand why it's so difficult for them to just split the SKU into two like they did with the PS5 and PS5 Slim, but it's not what they want to do, I guess. I'm sitting pretty here because I have a PS5 Slim. It's using the same disk drive, so I'll just take the disk drive out of my Slim, use that as a digital console, pop it in the PS5 Pro because that's de facto my main console at this point. But yeah, I really wish I had the opportunity to buy it with the disk drive at launch. It is a little bit disappointing that they're not selling it that way. The only reason I can think of is they just don't want a $700 console out on the market. Like they don't want to be shredded by IGN and Kotaku and all these websites, so they're just saying it's $600 and you can make it $700 yourself if you want to. Next, we should probably cover ray tracing because that's obviously going to be a huge tenet of the PlayStation 5 Pro. know, it's going to be one of the features that a game can have that will give it the PS5 Pro enhanced badge. Honestly, I've never really been too hardcore into ray tracing because I've never had a PC that could run a game at 60 FPS at a normal resolution and actually have ray tracing turned on. But where I saw the light with it, no pun intended, was with Spider-Man 2, because all of the modes in that game between quality and performance, they all have ray tracing enabled, and it looks really good. Like, the reflections of the light and everything is awesome, and it gave it a big graphical upgrade over Spider-Man Remastered, which was already a really good looking game. Even with the CPU bump, the GPU bump, the upscaling, I still don't really think the PS5 Pro is going to be powerful enough to really match a good PC in terms of ray tracing, because again, I have a 4090 in my PC and I still can't run most games with ray tracing on with my 1440p monitor unless I bump the settings down or use performance upscaling with DLSS, which doesn't look very good. But I do think that going forward, they'll be able to implement it in more games, similar to how they did it in Spider-Man 2, where it's just like reflections and everything like that. Or maybe like Spider-Man 2 could get an update that will add in more features than what it already has and still retain the 60 FPS mode. Either way, if you're using ray tracing in pretty much any game, you're going to have to use upscaling. So just be ready for that. They might have to use more aggressive upscaling with the PS5 Pro to enable ray tracing and keep it at 60 FPS. Basically, what I'm saying is we need more than just quality and performance modes. They need to have a performance RT mode, kind of like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. But whereas that would drop the frame rate to 40 FPS if you were playing on a 120 Hertz monitor, this would keep the game at 60 FPS and retain the similar settings, but be able to actually hit 60, which would be great. Then performance mode would be similar to the quality mode of the PS5, and quality mode would be even better than the quality mode on the PlayStation 5. So they're just scaling everything up by a tier. I really think that's the only hope we can really, get excited for here when it comes to the PS5 Pro, because while this thing is definitely more powerful than the PS5, I don't want to get overhyped and set expectations too high with it, because at the end of the day, this is not a high-end gaming PC. This is a console. This is mass market. It's made to be as cheap as possible, so there's always going to be caveats. But in terms of ray tracing, I think we'll see ray tracing enabled in more games going forward on the PS5 Pro than we have on the PS5. Obviously, that's a super low bar to clear because there haven't been that many games with ray tracing, and when you turn it on in the games that do have it, a lot of times the game doesn't run all that well. So I think we're just going to find a very happy middle ground when it comes to ray tracing, and that's cool. And then the PS6 is where it's really going to start to be included in every game possible, which is awesome. But yeah, the biggest thing I'm excited about with the PlayStation 5 Pro, other than getting new hardware, of course, because that still gets me excited as it did when I was a little kid, is going back and playing some of these games that are truly next gen and had 60 FPS modes and didn't look very good, or had 60 FPS modes and didn't actually run at 60 FPS. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I never beat that game. I put a lot of time into it. I'm about 30 hours in. When you're playing 60 FPS, it runs at 60 FPS, but the graphics are so degraded when you get farther into the game that it really just sours the experience. I'm really curious if we'll see that game upscaled and actually looking as good as it does in the quality mode when it's running in performance mode. That would be great to kind of split the difference and get increased visuals when you're playing at 60 FPS. Dead Space is one, Jedi Survivor is another. I don't think a lot of the PlayStation IP is going to benefit all that much from the PlayStation 5 Pro, because the vast majority of the games they've released this gen have gotten director's cuts that run at high resolution and 60 FPS already. So increasing from an internal 1440p to an internal 4K, it doesn't really, it's not going to blow my mind or anything like that. It's mostly third-party stuff that came out with 30 FPS modes or broken 60 FPS modes, like Alan Wake 2, for example, that are going to get a huge benefit out of this. And what happened with me with the PS4 Pro is I went back and played a lot of games that I'd already beat and cleaned up platinums and stuff like that, and I am more than happy to do that again with this console. The big burning question here is, where is the showcase, right? Where are all these first-party games that are being worked on? The clock is ticking for Sony. To me, from a hardware standpoint, they've given me enough reason to upgrade, but I know there's a million people out there or more who are still on the PlayStation 4 or have a PS5 and don't feel like that thing has been taken advantage of yet. The thing that you're going to be able to do to push them over the cliff and get them to want a PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 5 Pro if they already have a PlayStation 5 is show them games to be excited for, and that was clearly missing from this technical announcement, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I'm just glad at the end of the day that this thing is out there, it's shown off, it's announced, it's ready to go. I'm going to pre-order one as soon as it's available, and I'm so excited to make a video about it as soon as I get my hands on it. I'm so excited, man. Like the PS5 generation from a hardware standpoint is my favorite so far out of all the generations. I hope towards the tail end, like every other generation, the PS3 and PS4, they're able to really come out swinging with some big first party stuff. And I'm just excited to have hardware that's going to be able to give me the best experience possible playing those games. But yeah, let me know if you're as excited as I am down in the comments below. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.